Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Calabasas online tutoring channel. Today we're going to be talking about verifying trigonometric identities. So here's an example of a problem that we might see. So let's take problem number 28 on page 366 of the textbook Pre-Calculus with Limits, a Graphing Approach. So our problem reads 1 plus cosecant of negative theta divided by cosine of negative theta plus cotangent of negative theta equals secant of theta. So what we want to do is we want to verify that this side is equal to this side. So instead of working with negative angles, we want to work with negative functions. So we're going to take 1 minus cosecant of theta, because cosecant's an odd function, so that means it becomes negative, divided by cosine of theta, because cosine, as we all know, it's an even function, minus cotangent of theta, because cotangent is an odd function, so that becomes negative, equals secant of theta. So the best thing we want to do is we want to convert anything we can to sine or cosine. So let's convert the top right there. So we're going to convert it to 1 minus 1 over sine, because that's what cosecant is, theta, divided by cosine of theta minus 1 over tan of theta. So the top is good, but the bottom, we have 1 over tan, and because we know that tan is sine over cosine, because we're taking the cotangent of it, so the inverse of it, we're going to make it cosine over sine. So you can write as cosine over sine. So we want to get a common denominator on both halves. So on the top we would have sine of theta minus 1 over sine of theta divided by, just too much that, divided by cosine of theta times sine of theta. Sorry, I didn't write that there. Let me rewrite it. All right, times sine of theta minus cosine all over sine of theta. So because when we're dividing, we just multiply the reciprocal. So if we were to rewrite that, so it would be sine of theta minus 1 all over sine of theta times sine of theta over cosine of theta times sine of theta minus cosine. So we could cross off our signs, cross it off. So what we're left with is sine of theta minus 1 over cosine of theta times sine of theta, that's a sine, minus cosine equals, because we know that secant is 1 over cosine, we can just write it as 1 over cosine. So on the bottom, because we have cosine right there and cosine right there, we can take a cosine, that's their common factor, so cosine theta, which means that it would become sine of theta, because cosine is times sine right there, minus 1. So we can cross that off, over sine minus 1 equals 1 over cosine. So the sine theta minus 1 divided by sine theta minus 1, you could just cross those out. So that means 1 over cosine of theta equals 1 over cosine of theta. So because those statements are equal, we have just verified that this 1 plus cosecant, I don't know why there's that dash there, but whatever, 1 plus cosecant of negative theta divided by cosecant divided by cosine of negative theta plus cotangent of negative theta equals to secant of theta. So this side equals that side equals. So we have just verified trigonometric identities, and so we have just pretty much said that this side is equal to this side. So the order that we did it was, first we made the functions even and odd, then we simplified it, so we made everything into sine and cosine because that's easier to work with, so that's step 2. And then we just pretty much converted that to that just so it's easier to see, so that's step 3. And then we did the reciprocal because we're dividing, so we just multiply the reciprocal, so that's step 4. And then we made this part right here, we made it just simplified, so we crossed off the top from the bottom because they both had the same thing, so that's step 5. We simplified a little bit more, and then we just proved that 1 over cosine is equal to 1 over cosine. So because those are equal, we have just proved that this side is equal to that side, so we have just verified trigonometric identities. Thank you. Boom.